Good early afternoon. We are live. We're broadcasting everywhere. Not just doing Just Wisdom Harbor today, even though Dina Kilpatrick says that, hey, you're doing Wisdom Harbor Day on Halloween or whatever. But yes, I am doing it on all platforms because we promised that we would talk about the election. That enough to make you turn it off? I've got the hiccups.
I've seen you do your hiccup trick, but I don't know if it's something you should do on the air.
If it's doable on the air, well, I don't know. Marcy Taylor, good morning. I hope you ain't got the hiccups there in Richland, Washington. The mountain behind your house was shrouded in fog this morning. And that's pretty cool for Halloween. I'm trying to figure out if I do have the hiccups or if I don't have them. You know, I'm kind of in between. I've kind of got the hicks, maybe. When I do that, I kind of hiccup. Dave Hookup, great. Good afternoon. You're watching branches break from the snow? Where are you? Because you're usually in Phoenix. Okay, I got the hiccups. I've officially got the hiccups. That was not just a hic, that was a hiccup. Would you, Julie, would you bring me a coffee cup with water in it? Okay? I'm going to show you how you get rid of hiccups. I'm going to show you, okay? Checking in from Moundville, Alabama. Hope to see you in person in December from my aunt. Oh, Tom Henderson, good afternoon. Clearwater, Florida. Oh my gosh. Prize Video Productions, good to have you guys aboard. Beautiful weather in Mayberry today. I see you, buddy. Ernest T. Virginia Willis, Rosie says, just seen the Amazing Grace thing and you're in Lakeland, Florida. I'm glad that has been going around like, all right, thank you. Wanda Parsons watching from Murfreesboro. Okay, this is just water. Edie Ward. Yeah, I've got hiccups. She says she just tuned in. Hiccups. Uh-oh, yeah. Okay. Now, I want to explain this before I do it because I'm not curing cancer or anything, but I know that a lot of people have problems with hiccups. And there's the hold your breath thing, there's the drink water thing, there's the hold your earlobes thing, there's the hold the inside of your ears thing, there's the hold your breath thing. Linda Berg, greeting from East Central Illinois farm country. Okay, but hiccups are a problem with your diaphragm. That's where you have your problem with hiccups. Shirley Greenfield Cole from Amarillo, Texas. 3.5 inches of snow this morning. Judy Hess. Hey, Judy. How are you doing? How are the Martins doing? Oh, it's warm there in Columbus, Georgia. If you don't know who the Martins are, you need to go on YouTube and look up the Martins. But Judy is watching us today. Judy, do you know how to get rid of hiccups? I'm fixing to tell everybody. Hiccups are a problem with your diaphragm. And there's only one way to reset your diaphragm, and that is to drink upside down. I know this sounds odd, but this always works, and it always works for everybody. Everybody that I have taken and said, okay, I know you got the hiccups now, here, just try this. All right, so what we're going to do, I'm going to drink from this side of the cup. Marcy Taylor says, your husband takes a spoonful of sugar. That's just because he wants sugar. He's not getting rid of any hiccups with sugar. Okay, so we're we're going to drink from this side of the cup. We're going to do it without taking a breath and going to do 3, 4, 5 swallows. There's a guy just coming into the studio. He's going to go, what the heck is going on? All right, here we go. You ready? Here we go. That should do it. The guy just walking the street. That should do what? What was that? All right, so you can actually kind of feel your diaphragm reset when you're doing that, but you're going upside down and swallowing it without taking breaths, swallowing it 4 or 5 times, and it resets. Judy Hess, taking notes? All right, good. And I'm good. Kim Petrucci said it doesn't fall out your nose. If it don't fall out this nose, it ain't gonna fall out anybody's nose. I'll just tell you that. So, here we go. Now, I gotta tell you, people have been asking me, say something about the election. Say something about the election. You hadn't said anything about the election. I was like, yeah, I know. I just don't want to be a punching bag. And, I've quit watching anything about it. I know what I'm doing. I don't know if I can turn anybody or help or whatever. I've tried the past couple times. I don't know if I did any good or not. We usually see an increase in the sales of How Do You Kill 11 Million People around election season. Because generally people, because, that's about lying. And so I think that generally people see one candidate or another as lying. And so people will buy these books and give them to their friends, and doesn't say Republican, doesn't say Democrat, just about lying. But hadn't seen any increase in sales this time on the How Do You Kill 11 Million People, and I think it's pretty much because everybody's decided both of them are lying. And so I think people don't want to give it away because they say, oh, you're gonna use this against my candidate, but I want to try to do this. I want to try to. I don't have any original thoughts about this election. I only have connections. I mean, I think in terms of connections. I think in terms of. I think in terms of analogies, but when it comes to stuff that I don't know a whole lot about the intricacies of it, I'm at least smart enough to surround myself with people who do and who can explain it. I think that's why I really enjoyed listening to Dave Ramsey interview Donald Trump, because everybody else just lets Donald Trump talk. But Dave is a tough guy. I mean, and Dave just called BS on him on a couple of times, and at one point, Donald Trump says, I have created more jobs. I have done this. I've created more jobs than anybody. I'm the #1 job creator. There's no president that's ever created more jobs. And Dave said, you know what? I gotta stop you there and just say, when, as a business person, when we hear a political candidate say, I have created jobs, it just pisses us off. That's Dave Ramsey to Donald Trump. And he said, because you haven't created any jobs. He said, what you do is, as President of the United States, you create an environment where me, as a business owner, I can create jobs, or with that environment, I can decide just to hold where we are and not create any jobs. But you don't create any jobs, you just create an environment. And so whatever, whichever thing comes out, whoever gets elected, there will be an environment created. And and then I listened to Dave. Tucker Carlson interviewed Dave. Dave's my friend, and so I listen to everything he does. And he's also one of my smartest friends, and so he understands all the financial implications and all like that, the economic stuff, much better than I do. He also stopped Trump. Like at one point, Trump said something about tax cuts for everybody, tax cuts across the board. And Dave said, "Now, hang on there just a second. That's going to be tax cuts for billionaires too, right?" Trump said, "I said across the board." And Dave said, "Okay, but they're just jumping on you about tax cuts for billionaires." And he said, people are under the mistaken idea that when some rich person gets a tax cut, that they just have more money to stick in their pockets. But that's not what it is. You have more money to create more jobs. Because if you have $1 billion, you hadn't got the money anyway. I mean, you can't go to your own bank. If you have $50 billion, you can't even go to the bank and take out $1 million. I mean, they ain't got $1 million at the bank. And so it's really kind of on paper, but it creates companies, it creates jobs. So I just love the way Dave is able to explain and think. And then there's another guy who lives up in D.C., Bob McEwen, who's been a go-to guy for me for a long time, shaping my thoughts. And understand, I don't necessarily just go with what somebody else, what somebody believes. It's it's got to make sense to me. What Dave said about the job creation thing, he said, you've noticed for the past, he told Tucker Carlson this, he said, you've noticed that for the past 12, 18 months, things have been kind of stagnant. Nobody moving in business. Nobody making any real pushes. Nobody really hiring. And he said it's because nobody knows what this environment is going to be after the election. He said, now, we only have 50% of a clue. He said, because we all know what Trump's going to do, because he tells you what he's going to do. He's going to drill, baby, drill. He's going to shut down immigration. He's going to, this and tax cuts and tariffs. And Dave said, I don't necessarily agree with everything Trump is going to do. He said, but at least we know what he's going to do. We know what rules he's going to play by. Harris was on The View, on the television show The View, like a week or two ago, and they asked her, they said, you've been there at the White House, you've been there in this administration for 4 years. So what changes do you think that you will make if you're elected president? And her answer was, nothing comes to mind. Okay. So that either means it's going to be the same or something we don't know. And so as Dave Ramsey explains to me, that's why people are kind of hanging on. Because business people, life will go on, whoever wins. And business people are just like, okay, I want to play the game, but I got to know the rules. I got to know what the rules are. I don't even know what game we're playing. And so I'll just wait till after the election. Then we'll have a clue. You'll either know, we're going to deal with the same thing, or our gas prices are going to go down if we drill, baby, drill. And I mean, and do you know why gas prices spiked so heavily in the past 4 years? A lot of it is because, I mean, we had a drilling program going on, we had the pipeline going on, and so somebody thought it was a good idea to cancel all the drilling, cancel the pipeline, and buy $500 million worth of oil and gas from Russia. So we quit getting our own and put ourselves in debt and put ourselves dependent upon an enemy. To me, I don't know what world that makes sense in. But I don't know what world it makes sense in to have all our pharmaceuticals made in China either. Did you know that we don't make any antibiotics in America anymore? All our antibiotics are made in China. So there's also a guy in Wyoming, a judge in Wyoming, and he's a friend of mine, and I haven't asked him specifically about this, so I'll refrain from saying his name, but he's one of the smartest people that I've ever met. He's a former military guy and is a judge, and so as I run through a lot of these ideas are his and Dave's, and I'm just adding some analogies here. But let me just kind of continue to talk here, if you guys are okay with this. Have you heard? You've heard all the yan about FEMA running out of money and failing the hurricane victims, and money is going to Ukraine. Money's going. By the way, if you wonder how much money's going to Ukraine, it's $212 million a day. $212 million a day. Now, I want to help, but maybe they should be in a different place in line. Because if FEMA doesn't have enough money for another hurricane, and of course FEMA says, well, we haven't given any money of our money to Ukraine. We're using our money like our money is supposed to be used. Oh, yeah, okay, but that's like some kid with 3 different piggy banks, and the kid saying, "I'm out of money in my piggy bank. I can't buy anything else." And say, "Well, go to your other piggy banks." I mean, where do we think all this FEMA money is coming from? It's coming from one place, and that one place, maybe you don't have enough money to give to FEMA because they're giving it somewhere else or dealing with something else. But the thing is that I have noticed in the past couple of weeks is North Carolina, they're all, I don't know how much FEMA money, I don't know what FEMA's doing, but I do know they're getting taken care of up there. But it's the rednecks doing it. It's the churches and the rednecks that are doing it. I mean, the rednecks are clearing the roads, the rednecks are delivering food by horses, by however they got to do it. But, you're not seeing any rioting and looting in North Carolina because the rednecks are not allowing it. Their culture is not going to allow that. And so, anyway, the 2024 election, the presidential election, is already the most litigated election in American history. We're a week away from voting, and it's already the most litigated election in American history. Nearly 200 voting-related cases have already been filed, an average of 1 per day in October. So these lawsuits being filed and piled up before the election even go, they're generally about two things: illegal votes and tampering, or illegal voting and tampering with the voting. So one side says that anybody should be able to vote. Anybody should be allowed to vote. It doesn't matter if they're a citizen. It doesn't even matter if they're in this country illegally. They should be allowed to vote. And they shouldn't have to give any kind of ID that's discriminatory. You gotta have ID if you buy liquor. Gotta have ID if you go to the doctor. Gotta have ID if you get stopped by the police. Gotta have ID to buy cigarettes. You gotta have ID to get insurance. You gotta have ID but you don't have to have ID to vote. So this side is filing lawsuits to allow those people to remain on voter rolls, to allow that kind of vote. Now, the other side is filing lawsuits against tampering with the election. By the way, how is it possible to tamper with voting results? Yeah, I don't really know. But I will remind you that we have counted votes by hand, or that we counted votes by hand in America for 225 years. For 225 years, presidential election results were reported that night. It isn't that hard. Thailand can do it. But whether we do it by hand or do it by machine, there is no reason that we can't do it on the day of the election. You watch. Texas will have the votes counted that night, and they have 30 million people. And they'll have their votes counted. Losers, whoever loses, is always going to protest and gripe and moan. But whoever loses today will challenge the results, and it will ramp up more and more the more time you give them. Phoenix, Chicago, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Atlanta, Detroit, Charlotte, and a lot of other cities on one side in this election cannot do what Bangladesh can do: count votes in a timely fashion. Most of the swing states have adopted these loose voting practices that allow voting without ID, drop-off boxes, and systems of gathering votes that are just filled with the potential for fraud. I mean, I don't know how you tamper with votes, but you could probably see that it might be easier to tamper with votes if you're dropping something in a box than if you're doing it electronically. It might be easier to tamper with the votes if people have 10 days to figure out how to tamper with them. So the secretaries of state in most of those places have already come out and said that it'll be days, in some cases 10 to 14 days before the final tally is in. So we already know that governmental practices that can be accomplished in, say, Sudan cannot be accomplished in Phoenix or Atlanta. So what we'll probably see is a repeat of what we saw last time. The supposedly ignorant redneck mouth breathers in rural and suburban areas around these states are going to vote, and their precincts will gather and count the votes and submit them to the Secretary of State that night, just as they have for 250 years. And one side will pile up a huge lead. And just like last time, everybody will go to bed not knowing who won. Because unlike Botswana, for example, high-tech urban centers like Detroit or Charlotte, where all the smart people are unable to count votes in a timely fashion. Apparently, the leaders in these big cities are just too incompetent to pull that off. or they're too incompetent to do three things. One is to conceive of a way to determine how many legal voters there actually are in their precincts. Number two, they haven't figured out how to distribute ballots for everybody with a deadline to submit them, or to make available an adequate number of stations for voting in person. And three, they haven't figured out how to hire enough people to handle and count the expected number of ballots in a timely fashion and in a secure way. I mean, it's like paving streets or battling crime or educating children is just too much for some of these urban governments to do. The rednecks can figure it out. Nigerians, Haitians, everybody else in the world gets it right, but not our big cities. They're either incompetent or worse. And as time goes on, I tend to think or worse. So for 10 days or so, the country is going to be held hostage by these people who are running a very few cities. And here's something that really bothers me. Our current government is just unsustainable long term. I mean, think about where we are and how we operate right now. We can't pass a budget. We can't field a military. We can't explore space. We can't regulate trade, secure our borders, execute law enforcement functions, collect taxes, oversee energy policy, or perform to a standard any of the functions that are traditionally performed by the federal government. Fiscal policy is set by a tiny group of people who don't answer to anybody. National security policy consists of reacting to crisis after crisis without any guiding principle. Domestic policy consists of catering to non-citizens and poorly educated college graduates. We're floundering while we're spending trillions and getting almost nothing in return. Think about this. Who can look back and tell us what the policy differences were between George W. Bush or Gore or Romney and Obama? Nobody, because there weren't really any serious disagreements. Both sides did the same thing. They threw money at a problem, they expected nothing of our allies, and they accept crappy results from our own agencies. Do you know there's it's between 220 and 250 federal agencies. And in the first 100 years of our country, there weren't any that were created. And so in the last 100 or so, we've created about 4 a year, average 4 a year. And none of them have ever been closed, ever. So it's just kind of a rinse and repeat, with one party wanting more and one party crying waste and abuse, and both parties voting to continue to fail. The only difference in the George Bush, and I like President Bush. I did stuff with him. But the only difference between the policies of Bush, Obama, McCain, Romney, all these people, what they're putting together, the only difference was the faces. It's like voting for the student body vice president in high school. It's just like, yeah, okay, whatever. But what we know now is that whatever the outcome, this time the people have a real choice. And if the people choose Kamala Harris, that's fine. They were given a real alternative. Because Trump couldn't be much different in terms of style and substance and background and beliefs. He couldn't be much. I mean, we're talking about several terms of office where it's kind of the same faces, or just the only difference was the faces. Well, now You got a choice this time, baby. I mean, because they could not be more different. I mean, Trump is not only different from the Democratic Party, he's different from the vast majority of the political class, whether it's left or right. He's just, and look, I'm not, and my joke is that if somebody from 1776 suddenly appeared in your living room, what would be the hardest thing to explain to them? The internet, or how after a couple of hundred years, these two are the best we could come up with? I mean, I don't like either one of them, but you got to vote for the team. It's the team. Vote for your values and vote for the team, because it's not the president. The president is it's not the president that's going to really make things happen. I mean, the president's just kind of the face of it. It's the team. It's the team that makes things happen. And if you don't believe the team is in charge, look at our president now. Do we really think he's running anything? It's a team. And you don't even know who they are. But this team, they're all kind of, there's this team and there's this team. And so, I've heard people say, well, I'm just not going to vote because I'm not going to be put in the position of voting for the lesser of two evils. Let me tell you something. That's all you have ever done is vote for the lesser of two evils, because Jesus has never run for office. So we've only had flawed candidates, whether you knew what they were, knew how they talked out loud to their friends or not. We've only had flawed candidates. And then I hear people say, well, I vote for the person, not the party. Well, that sounds smart until you actually know how it works up there. If you and I mean, Bob Woodall, I see you right there. If Bob Woodall is one of my best friends. If Bob and I went down to the YMCA and they were having pickup basketball, and Bob and I, we're best friends. And if Bob and I get chosen on different teams, okay, well, during the game, Bob may go, throw it to me. Well, he's my best friend. But I'm not going to throw it to him. He's on a different team. And his team will compel him to throw it through that basket. I mean, if I threw it to him, my team, I'd never see the ball again. They may kick me out. And so you can't vote for the person. You got to vote for the team. I saw Heath Schuler. Heath Schuler is a friend of mine. Is a quarterback at Tennessee, number 1 draft choice of the Redskins. And one time, this is, 15, 16 years ago, Heath came and he said, hey, I'm running for Congress. And I'm like, really? Oh, great. Okay. And he said, yeah, but I'm running with this party because this party is the only way you can get elected in my district. And we were like, really? And he said, but you know my heart. You know who I am. And I'm going to vote my conscience. I'm going to vote my values. And you and I have the same values. And we saw him go to Washington for 3 terms, voted with them against his own values and against his own beliefs and against everything he said he stood for. We saw him do it for 3 terms. Because he was on another team. So, does it even make a difference? I can tell you, if you're living under a peer, it don't make a difference. I remember living under a peer and, an election going on. I didn't care. I didn't care. What was somebody going to do? Here's some more sand. Here's some less sand. It ain't going to affect my life one way or another. And that's a lot of the reason why people don't vote. You know, I would give you a homework assignment. Some people say it doesn't matter. I'll give you a homework assignment. Knowing that when you're filling out your ballot, you're not just voting for president. You're voting for judges. You're voting for Congress people. You're voting for Senate people maybe in your state. But you're voting for judges. You're voting for superintendents of education. You're voting for this and that. And so you're voting for a lot of things other than just president. And so here's your homework assignment. I want you to Google just pick a year, like the last election, 2020, and Google how many elections were decided by less than 50 votes, because it's like several hundred. And people say it doesn't matter. It does matter. It does matter. I mean, I've got plans for my business. I've got plans for my business and our team members here, and what I'm able to offer our clients with creating measurable results, and what Wisdom Harbor does. I've got plans if inflation settles, if it doesn't cost me $130 to drive to Nashville in gas alone. I've got plans if things are stable with hiring, and but I've also got survival plans for my family. And so you're the same way. I mean, you've got plans to do things that will help your community economically, that will help other people, but your family is first. And you've also got plans of how you're going to hang on if you have to. So, vote your values. Vote for the team. I mean, you know how this goes. You know what kind of economy you want. You know what team provides what. And Tom Henderson said the last 30 minutes have made more sense on the political round than anything I've heard in the last 6 months. Well, thank you. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm as baffled as most of you are. I'm just trying to listen. And by the way, while we're talking about it, and then I'll kind of cut this off, but I saw one of the candidates in a church setting saying a vote for me is a vote for what God wants you to do. And I don't believe that. I do believe that God wants us to move to more conservative values. I do believe that it's God's will that we have more family atmosphere and less of the bad stuff, more of the good stuff, I guess. But I guess that depends on what you think's bad stuff and what you think's good stuff. I don't think abortions are good stuff. I don't think I don't think allowing kids to be a part of changing their own gender, I don't think that's good. I mean, hell, when I was 6, I wanted to be a pirate. I'm glad my parents didn't let me cut a leg off to get a peg leg and put an eye out to get an eye patch. So, but I do believe that God's will is that we move more toward God. But I got to tell you this, just because it's God's will, that don't mean he's going to make it happen. I mean, he has already proven to us that if we go against his will, the results are not good. I mean, you can read that in the Bible. You can see that in history. However you want to figure it out, go against God's will. And so, while I think it's God's will for us to be a country of values, God put that free will thing in there, and just because it's his will, he's not going to make it happen. That's up to us to follow God's will. So, anyway, have I made myself sad doing this? I don't know if I have or not. I don't know. Anyway, thank you, Margaret, for your kind words. And we'll see you Tuesday. Tuesday's when we vote, right? And we're doing a blue plate on Tuesday. Okay. We're just going to do something funny on Tuesday. We're just going to have fun. All right. And there you go. You guys have a great weekend. Bye-bye.